Trilogies come in three, so it only makes sense that I wrap up my little series talking about the classic editions that Nintendo's got under their belt with one third and final video, because people just can't get enough of those. And good trilogies manage to tie everything together and come back to things that were brought up previously. And the reason why I was pushed to make a video about a potential N64 Classic Edition, which is inevitable at this point since it's actually becoming a reality that we're getting the SNES Mini this year, it only makes sense for Nintendo to pump out the N64 Classic next year. But I want to address a couple of the comments that were talked about in my most recent video about the SNES Mini and my urge to tell people to not buy it, because this is our chance to speak to Nintendo with our wallets and make sure that they get their strategies right. There were a couple of comments saying that, first of all, my opinion and my advice of trying to tell people to not buy the SNES Mini is not going to work. I can at least try. You can't stop me from trying. All right, people are telling me this is not going to work, David. Come on, who are you trying to prove? Why should we listen to you? You don't have to listen to me. You don't even have to watch my video. But that's not going to stop me from trying to put my word out there and speaking my mind. The other comment that I really wanted to use to kind of anchor my video about the N64 Classic is that a lot of people are like, oh, boo-hoo, you know, cry me a river, why didn't you get one when you had the chance? Here's the deal. What really irks me and a lot of people about Nintendo's choice to discontinue the NES Classic Edition and me telling people to not buy the SNES, even though that's going to encourage other people to do so even more, especially scalpers. Some people used the statement brought over by Nintendo that this was meant to be a limited product. This was supposed to be a novelty item that was only going to last for a few months, and then they were going to discontinue it and move on, whether it be to another Classics edition of another console or to support the Switch better. Okay, I understand that. In fact, limited things happen all the time from various companies, but the chance to be able to get it, that's what bothers me. I never got that chance. As a normal, by-the-book consumer that goes to stores and still buys their games physically, which is becoming a little bit of a dying breed because digital sales are starting to rack up more than physical copies because people don't like to go to the store no more, to brick-and-mortar stores to buy their games, which is why GameStop is in trouble. I still support that kind of physical type of interaction with video games, especially with a novelty item, a collector's item like the NES Classic Edition. And I never got the chance to actually hold it in my hand. That's what I was looking for. That to me was the indicator as to why they needed to get that right, is because I want to be able to walk into a Best Buy, walk into a Walmart or Target, whatever the fuck, and be able to actually pick it up in my hands and hold it. And if I make the choice of saying, okay, you know what, I'll buy it some other time, and then I go and then boom, they discontinue it, then at that point I'll be blaming myself, not so much Nintendo, because I passed up on the opportunity to buy it. Therefore, I will blame myself. That's when I'll take the pity and be like, fuck, I didn't buy one. But I never got that chance. I was never able to comfortably walk into a Best Buy, be able to pick it up and either decide to walk out the store with it or not. That's what I'm looking for. Even if it's a limited edition type of thing that's going to be discontinued within months, give me that chance. And that's why I was bothered so badly by them discontinuing the NES Classic Edition right out the gate and sending out these secret stashes that are supposed to be going out any second now. In fact, I went to Best Buy recently to pick up a new SD card because my most recent one broke. And for the hell of it, I just asked an associate, like, hey, do you guys think are getting the NES Classic Editions? Because supposedly before the end of April, they're going to release a brand new set of ones, and they have no fucking clue. So at that point I was just like, okay, and I walked right out. I'm not going to be calling them from sunrise to sundown. I'm not going to be stalking them. I'll try, but if I don't, oh well. And that's what leads me to another comment that was posted, is that I'm urging people to not buy the SNES Mini, but I did say within the same video that I would want to jump at the chance of getting an N64 Classic Edition because that's the console that I grew up with. And when I mentioned that, somebody posted a comment calling me a hypocrite. Here's the deal though. Here's the reason why I felt comfortable saying that statement, is because the SNES Mini is closer than you think than the N64 Mini, because the N64 Classic Edition is just a speculation at this point. We can only dream of what games could be on that thing. The SNES Mini, however, is actually being in production. It's actually being worked on right now by Nintendo. And it's supposedly set to come out this holiday. And whether you like it or not, the holiday season is not that far around. And when we're talking about the holiday season, when it comes to buying things that are video game related, we're not talking about specifically Christmas. We're talking about fucking Black Friday. We're talking about those holidays that start up around the October-November segment of the year, because that's when we start to get all these other fall games. That's why an awful lot of Halo games and other type of shooters come out around that time, like around October or whatever. In fact, fuck April. April's done with. We're jumping right into May. We're literally about 5 or 6 months away from getting that release window of the SNES Mini, whereas the N64 is far off. That's why I urge people not to buy the SNES Mini, because that's an opportunity that's coming up very, very soon, whereas this, we can only speculate as to whether or not it's going to come out or not, because my emphasis is on the choice to be able to make a difference with the upcoming SNES Mini, because that's just right around the corner. A choice whose effect I'm hoping will ripple to the potential Nintendo 64 Classic Edition. And that's where I get into the strategies of what I would love to see from Nintendo handling this product. Okay, so at this point, I think it's a given that these things are a commodity item, they're a novelty item, they're a collector's editions type of thing, and they're only going to be around for a limited amount of time. Cool, now we know that. So now, having known that, we need to have that chance. And that's what I want to have with not just the SNES Mini, because I know an awful lot of you guys love that console and want to get that SNES Mini, because nothing's going to stop you, not even my videos, okay? Why should you listen to me? Okay, cool, you're your own person. And I would love for you to have that chance to be able to walk into the store and grab the item. And that's what I'm hoping to have with the N64 Mini, should that come out in 2018. That's something that I want Nintendo to put into consideration when developing the stock for these things, is that even if you looking at this thing at being a limited item and it's only going to be around for a few months before moving on to the next thing, whether it be supporting the Switch or a potential Switch Mini, Switch miniature slim console, which is being rumored here and there, God forbid, at least plan it out right where you put out the right amount of quantity items, and we are given that chance. Even if we don't buy it and we say, okay, later on, and then we miss our chance, at least we had the opportunity. Pre-ordering is fine. I thought there was no problem with having to pre-order the NES Classic, and I don't expect any kind of difference with the SNES Mini or the Nintendo 64 Classic should that happen. But what I don't want to resort to is having to call my retailers and be like, hey, you got it now, you got it now, you got it now. I don't want to be dealing with that, because again, I know it racks up the excitement for it, and therefore the scarcity of it all is what really drives people to buy them, especially because they're only $60, and God only knows how much the N64 Mini could be. It might be 70 or 80 because they might port over some other games on that. I don't know. That's something that we still don't know about the SNES Mini, and we could still speculate, as well as the games that's going to be ported onto that. And no more secret stock. No more secret stock saying, okay, here's where you might get it or not. No, we need to be told what is going on by Nintendo. We need to know when the stock's going to be due. We need to know how many are going to be in stock. And when you run out, we need better connection here. Because Nintendo would often kind of dodge the ball and be like, okay, we might have some later on this year, I don't know. And I think it was barely now, that like a few days ago, that we learned that not only was the Switch going to be back in stock on April 28th, but the Nintendo NES Classic Editions, the last batch before it gets discontinued, are going to be sold, given to retailers around April 24th, 25th, something like that. So you need to check over with them. But guess what? I check out the Best Buy weekly ad, and all I see is, hey, Nintendo Switch back in stock April 28th. Nothing about the NES Classic Edition. Nothing. We need better communication, not only through the retailers, but through Nintendo, saying, hey, this is what's happening with this item. Here's what we're going to be able to do with fix it. And I know at this point I'm grasping at straws here, because shit like that should have happened by now with Nintendo. Not just with the NES Classic Edition, but pretty much an awful lot of things that they have done in the past. Especially with the whole copyright movement going on right now on YouTube. Better communication would be the best thing to happen to Nintendo, but it should have happened by now. And if it's not happening by now, I don't see it happening anytime soon. And it's a very sad thing. All those things combined, I think, could definitely put forward not just the N64 Mini, but the SNES Mini. This is something that I'm also hoping for the SNES Mini, and if it happens, that's awesome. I'm glad that that happens, even if I'm not a fan of the Super Nintendo, and I'm not going to be over there trying to grab one because I didn't grow up with the console. I'm still going to be very happy for Nintendo to taking those right steps to making sure that this thing sells, puts more money in their pocket, and hopefully with that money, they can not only innovate more, but also bring us what we want from Nintendo mostly over these gimmicks within their consoles and within their peripherals and all that is great games, whether it be first party or third party. Just pump out those awesome games and we'll continue to support you. You just need to trim the fat. Trim the fat while at the same time making sure that you're getting the right type of nutrients, and sometimes those nutrients is just a simple one-on-one conversation between the company itself and the community that wants to support it really badly. And I think that can fix not just the issues with the NES Classic Editions, but also the entire Classic Editions line, as well as the Switch. With that said, what would I love to see on the N64 Classic Edition? Because this is one that I could definitely talk about because I grew up with the system, I love it. It's a little difficult because first and foremost I want to say Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but we already got those on the 3DS, so I don't know if we'll be getting those exact remakes onto this. It would be rather nice, and it's kind of a given, at least one of them, and between the two, I gotta be honest, I think I'll go for the Ocarina of Time to feel that console and that controller in my hand, while at the same time playing Ocarina of Time rather than the 3DS, because even though the 3DS is not bad, jumping back onto that console, no matter how weird looking it was, would be just a good old-fashioned nostalgia trip down memory lane. But then you got some others that are like straight up givens and needs to happen. Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, and this one's gonna be the one that we can only dream of, but don't be surprised if it doesn't happen when the N64 Mini rolls around because of contracts and obligations and partnerships and such. GoldenEye, fucking GoldenEye needs to be on the N64 Mini. Chances are it's not going to happen because Rare now belongs to Microsoft. Same reason why I'll say that you probably won't find any of the Banjo-Kazooie games on there, because not only do they belong to Rare, but I believe they're on that Rare Collectors thing for the Xbox One, as well as Perfect Dark. People grew up with those games on the N64, and I would love to see them be ported onto here, but because of that obligation, I don't see that happening. So let's stick with the stuff that came up with Nintendo, and besides those that I just listed, there's not a whole long list of games that I can personally think of, except maybe the original Smash Brothers. F-Zero GX, definitely need that. Wipeout was pretty cool, but again, not a must-have per se. Oh, definitely need to have Superman 64 on that. Or little red dot's gonna appear on my shirt right now. Turok. I did not play Turok growing up, but I know an awful lot of people did, so that has to be on there. And then I guess if we want to take an entry from my personal upbringing, I would say WCW NWO Revenge. Really loved playing that game, and one of the best things about it was flipping the cartridge and having characters just bounce from one scene. I know I could damage my cartridge, but it was really fun seeing Eric Bischoff punch like across the ring because I would glitch the cartridge and he would be like, it was great. Besides that, I really cannot think of any other games, but that's just me personally, that I personally would love to see on the N64. But I'm pretty certain that an awful lot of you guys who grew up with the N64 will love a whole lot of other assortment of games to be on that console. So please, let me know in the comments below what you guys would love to see on the N64 Classic Edition, because that's a generation that's a little closer to what most people here on YouTube kind of grew up with. I mean, an awful lot of people grew up with NES Classic, and of course the Super Nintendo. I think more people grew up with Super Nintendo than NES, but then we dive into N64, and that's when we were introduced to a whole another dimension of gaming, quite literally, that really changed the game. And I think that that's one of the consoles that makes up people's memories for the most part, and I think that we can all differ when it comes to our collection of video games that are near and dear to our hearts, and we would love to see be poured over to the N64 Classic Edition. So whatever you got to say, good or bad, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure you like this video and share it with anybody else who's a humongous fan of the Nintendo 64. And don't forget to support me by hitting the subscribe button down below to follow all upcoming videos. And if you want to follow even deeper, it's like that weatherman. It's like, we got a big rainfall here, almost as big as me. About 9 inches. But if you do want to get deeper and bigger and badder, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at DarkSpiderDave. And until next time, guys, take care. I will see you all later.